Good morning,
Good morning.
Chairman. We are ready to begin.
Good morning, Denisha. If you'll call the roll for the board members, please.
Yes, I'll begin with Roger Folsom,
Here.
Cynthia Rucker,
Here.
Tommy Hopkins,
Here.
Norman
Boyd,
Here.
David Cruz,
Here.
Anthony Williamson,
Here.
Shane Mobley,
Here.
Kathleen Ruth,
here.
Robert Coles. Robert Coles. Chairman, that concludes my roll call.
Thank you, Denisha. Well, we certainly have a quorum this morning, and so we hereby call the meeting to order. Good morning, everyone. As we would say in Dublin, top of the morning to you. We celebrate St. Patrick's down here for about 45 days. So everything's rather green. It was a pleasure to put on a blue jacket this morning rather than a green jacket. So if you're bored on Saturday, come down and enjoy some of the festival. It's a big time in Dublin. With that, Dr. Hopkins, we'd ask you if you had a chance to review the minutes, and would you recommend approval?
Yeah, the minutes have been previously sent to the members of the board and reviewed, and I submit them now for approval.
Okay, we have a motion for approval. Any discussion or corrections? Do we have a second for approval?
Second, Dr. Rucker.
Dr. Rucker has seconded the motion. So all those in favor by aye?
Aye. Aye.
All
Aye.
opposed, no. Minutes are approved. Opening comments this morning, we have one item to consider for initial adoption this morning with regards to certificate of need. And we have an informational session from Stuart, and we'll look forward to that. So a rather brief agenda this morning. I expect the next month's agenda to be a little more meaty after this session. With that, we'll move into the commissioner's report. Commissioner Carlson.
All right. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, and those of you watching virtually. We're happy to be back here in Georgia for day 31 of 40 for this year's legislative session. As many of you know, our federal leaders in Washington are debating various budgetary moves to both fund the federal government today and to include programs like Medicaid and others important to DCH, while also beginning conversations on proposed cuts offered by the administration. As for the continuing resolution, often referred to as a CR, that passed the U.S. House earlier this week, we are tracking the conversations in the U.S. Senate as they contemplate whether to pass a CR and keep moving the government forward relatively status quo, or if a down vote on the CR in the U.S. Senate forces a government shutdown. Now, please know from an operational standpoint, DCH has taken steps to make sure essential services are still available, but our ability to do so is always subject to how long the shutdown lasts and what administrative moves the federal government makes to protect essential services and payments, even if a shutdown happens, which sometimes occurs. Unfortunately, DCH has seen these before. And we do have certain protocols in place to pivot in the event of a shutdown. And we'll continue to monitor these events carefully as far as the funding of the programs, but also the rules and parameters set forth by CMS and other agencies as it pertains to what we can still accomplish in a shutdown. But please know that we're taking proactive measures to make sure that Georgians' needs are being looked out for in any scenario. Speaking of DC, earlier this week, several members of our leadership team met with senior officials in both the House and Senate committees of jurisdiction, staff level, for Medicaid policy and budgeting, as well as leaders at CMS, HHS, and others in the executive branch. We were also blessed to have some time with a few members of Georgia's congressional delegation. Our intent in these meetings was to make sure leaders know more about Georgia's programs and priorities and to make ourselves available as a resource. As one would imagine, there are dozens of conversations happening on any given day regarding proposed cuts and policy shifts in the healthcare space. And it's important for these officials to have Georgia's perspective at the forefront of their mind as potential impacts of state operations in general begin to take shape in their draft proposals in the weeks and months ahead. Shifting stateside, things are moving quickly as we enter the final 3 weeks of the legislative session. Since we last met, Governor Kemp signed the amended 2025 budget, and the House has voted their version of the FY 2026 Appropriations Act out of their chamber. The budget now rests in the breast of the Senate, where subcommittee meetings will soon be held and hours is scheduled to take place next Tuesday. Excuse me, I just lowered my chair here. Before Chairman Ben Watson of Savannah and the members of his Health Subcommittee on Appropriations. Again, that will be Tuesday. We want to thank the Governor's Office of Planning and Budget, as well as House and Senate budget offices and member appropriators for their openness and availability to engage the department as they weigh potential decisions that could affect our programs. A lot will be decided in the weeks ahead at both the state and federal levels. And our commitment to you is to be proactive in the pursuit of information on potential actions and prepared in how we should appropriately respond to inquiries when they are received. I want to thank the entire DCH staff for their prompt action on the dozens, if not hundreds, of inquiries we receive on all these matters and their commitment to being a fair and objective resource for policymakers at all levels of government. With that, Mr. Chairman, I would like to shift to our milestones for a moment, and then we can move forward with the rest of the agenda. And we, as always, have some pretty good ones worth celebrating here. So I'm going to start with a 25-year anniversary. Kenyatta Johnson in financial management, 25 years. Moving to a couple of 20-year milestones. Shunda Dennison Coffee and MAP, and Iona Share in financial management, both 20 years. Moving to several 10-year milestones. Floria Purdue in HFRD, Nicole Gibson in MAP, Kathy Davis in HFRD, Annette Maddox in SHBP, and Enid Patterson in SHBP. Again, all 10 years. Moving to 5 years. Bridget Shepard in financial management, Kimberly McKnight in MAP, Wendy Golden in health planning, and Stacy Williams in facilities and support services. And also for a number of 1 year, which are always worth celebrating. We're so grateful that these members have joined our team and have grown in their roles. Erica Turner, Office of General Counsel, Cassandra Powell Taylor, Human Resources, Mirlande Jean-Pierre, MAP, Nafisa Rani Mirza, HFRD, Trinier Doty, HFRD, Brenda Mills, HFRD, Mary O'Neill Marnichek, HFRD, Lalith Chambers, HFRD, and Julia Olivier, HFRD. And we appreciate all levels of those tenures here at the department, and always with the 1 year anniversaries, we appreciate those divisions who have clearly made recruitment and engagement such a priority, which is very important for this department moving forward. So thank you all for your service. Thank you all for the divisions and especially HR who administers those. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll defer back to you and the agenda.
Thank you, Commissioner Carlson. On behalf of the board, we extend our congratulations to all those employee milestones. Certainly important to the department and to our state. Any of the board members have questions for the commissioner regarding any of his comments or any other matter? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on down through the agenda. First item on the agenda is rules and regulations for health planning, certificate of need, and Carisha Lang, Executive Director of the Office of Health Planning, will present to us. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Chairman Folsom, Commissioner Carlson, and members of the board. The Office of Health Planning is presenting today for initial adoption the rules and regulations found at Chapter 111-2-2, Rules and Regulations for Health Planning Certificate of Need. A draft copy was provided to you. The proposed changes reflect amendments to the State Health Planning and Development Act, OCGA Sections 31-6-1 et sec, resulting from the passage of House Bill 1339 during the 2024 legislative session, which was signed by Governor Kemp on April 19, 2024. The proposed changes make updates to the health planning regulations so as to clarify certificate of need requirements and to clarify provisions relating to the acceptance and review of applications. Additional revisions are proposed to correct grammar. A public comment hearing will be held on April 8th, 2025 at 1 p.m. via Zoom. Written comments will be due on or before April 10th at 5 p.m. The department is requesting consideration of these rules for initial adoption today. Please let me know if there are any questions.
Any questions from any of the board members? Hearing none, is there a motion for initial adoption?
Motion for approval, David Cruz.
Second the motion, Norm Boyd.
Have a motion and a second for initial adoption. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by aye.
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 All opposed, no. Anyone abstaining? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Carisha, for the presentation.
Thank you, Chairman.
Now we'll move to an informational update on the state plan amendment for compliance, Consolidated Appropriations Act of 2023 from Stuart Portman. Good morning, Stuart.
Good morning. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, and Commissioner Carlson. The Consolidated Appropriations Act of 2023 contains a requirement for state Medicaid programs to cover certain services for justice-involved youth. All states must submit a Medicaid state plan amendment attesting, quote, that the state has developed an internal operational plan and in accordance with such plan will provide coverage during the statutory pre- and post-release period of screening, diagnostic, and targeted case management services for eligible juveniles who are within 30 days of release post-adjudication, end quote. These SPAs must have an effective date no later than January 1st, 2025. So they must be submitted no later than March 31st, 2025 in order to be applied for that quarter. DCH has developed the aforementioned internal operational plan and intends to comply with the requirements. However, it is worth noting that the age for who is a child in Medicaid, which is up to age 21, except for former foster youth, which is up to age 26, is different from the justice system's definition of a minor. As such, implementation of the screening and diagnosis requirement, as well as the targeted case management requirement, will be conducted in phases. This SPA will attest to the current standards upheld at DJJ for the population that they serve, as the screening and diagnosis standards there were developed from Medicaid's EPSDT standard. DJJ also provides targeted case management in certain circumstances. DCH will develop uniform standards in collaboration with DJJ, DHS, and corrections for screening, diagnosis, and targeted case management that can be provided in a consistent manner for all children meeting the Medicaid definition. As this is a significant undertaking across the state, CMS has already been informed that our timeline will be delayed as we build community buy-in, work with DJJ, and work with prisons and jails across the state in the years ahead. The SPA attestation will be submitted to CMS before March 31st this month. This SPA does not require a vote by the DCH board, as we already cover these services today, and we are not proposing a change in our reimbursement methodology or services. Thank you for your time, and as there are updates on our progress, I'm happy to share them.
Thank you, Stuart. Any questions for him from the board members? Well, again, thank you for that update.
Thank you.
Does any board member know of any new business that we need to bring before the board? Well, hearing none, we may have broken a record, Norm. I don't know what your record was for the shortest meeting, but we may have broken it this morning.
Good job, Roger.
Yes. If there's no other business come before the board, we thank you for your time this morning and we stand adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you.